crafty friends, this is Julissa of Paper Gems by Jules, and today I'm making not one but two cards using the Seraphim Wings die. So there is a stamp set called Seraphim Wings, which is a beautiful, detailed, ginormous butterfly with 3 sentiments, and it does have a coordinating die. And for these two cards, I am using the coordinating die to create a stencil, but I'm using both sides of the stencil to create 2 different card fronts. So for this first one, I'm using the exterior side of the butterfly to cover the card front. So I'm lining things up, and then I'm going to place this in my MISTI because I'm going to color the inside and then stamp on the inside. So I'm just making sure that it's pressed neatly inside. And then when I put it inside my MISTI, I'm also going to cover the edge. So I have used the scallop and stitched rectangles die to die cut the card front with white cardstock that's Copic friendly. And I was trying to take off the tackiness of this washi tape, but I must have not, or I pressed a little too hard on the edge because I pull a little bit of the edge, but you won't notice it in the end. Happens, right? We all make mistakes. So I'm using some washing tape to cover the edge because what I want to do is keep the outside of the stitching on this card front to still remain white after I do the ink blending. As far as colors, I'm going to use Rusty Hinge, Tea Dye, and Tattered Rose Distress inks. The other stamp set that I am incorporating into the card front is going to be Paper Wings, which is another beautifully detailed stamp set, and it comes with 3 butterflies and 2 kind of floral images and a fun sentiment that states "a life so beautifully lived." I think this sentiment is gentle enough for a sympathy card, but it's also just a nice hello card, or just a motivational card. It's really just doesn't have to be sad. It can be uplifting and sweet and kind and just kind of like a thinking of you. So I wanted this also to have some soft colors, and so that's why I've used some browns and pinks just to kind of keep it light but pretty and a little spring, but maybe a little fall and just a little different, not so bright and cheery, but just gentle. So I'm ink blending where this butterfly outline would be and just kind of going back and forth with some of the colors, just making sure that the blend is nice and smooth. These colors are not just, easily blending in. The Rusty Hinge is very bold and bright compared to some of the other colors, so I just keep going back and forth. But when we pull off the masking, you'll see that it makes so much more sense. The next thing I'm using is the sentiment, and I have this awesome grid sheet that I use to line things up because I'm a little crazy about lining things up. Please don't feel the need to have things like this. This is my own craziness. You know what? It's handmade, not Hallmark. Go with the flow. Enjoy craft making. Don't get upset when things don't get lined up perfectly. It's made with love. That's the most important part. I just go a little crazy. Anyway, for the florals, I am actually using the Distress ink, which is not normally used for stamping, but I wanted it to have kind of a softer look in the background. I'm later going to use that same black Versaclear ink to stamp those same florals, but I'm just creating a soft background with some of the lighter colors. So I'm just going to stamp those. And again, I used a Rusty Hinge at first, and then I'm using the tea dye to make a lighter version. So I'm stamping those a couple times just to fill the background again. And now I'm using the black. So this is a great way to kind of create dimension and layers without having to pop things up or have, any sort of embossing. Again, this is completely flat, one layer, but it adds a little depth to the image. And again, you don't have to have every floral straight up and down. Again, some of this stuff is masked off, so it doesn't show where the lines are. Things could be flowing in the wind, whatever. It's all good. Be creative. See, this is where I'm pulling the tape and I realized I ripped a little bit, but I think we salvaged this little whoopsies. Look how beautiful that is. Isn't that a fun reveal? Like when you pull away that masking magic paper, oh, it is really magic. I love when Gina K calls it masking magic because it is magic. It is. All right, so now we're using the other half of the die cut butterfly from the Seraphim Wings die. I'm trying to make sure I say that right. All right, so I'm using the same colors. I'm starting with the lightest, which is going to be the Tattered Rose, starting with the top. And just bear with me. I'm trying to use something to hold the paper together. And if my camera shakes, I'm just trying to really blend that light color in so I see it. Okay, I'm going in with the second color, same concept. Except again, this is going to be on the exterior. So when we pull that mask off, it is going to be white underneath here. You know, another technique would be is if you use colored cardstock and then you could ink blend around it, and then that's the bold one. You can ink blend all around and then do something else where it's just splatters on the outside, and that way you could see it. There's a million things you can do. There's so many great ideas of using this masking version of the die to create. I mean, so you're not limited to just, oh, I need to have the stamp in order to use a die. You can do anything. Really, really just explore. So here I was just trying to think. I wasn't even sure what I was doing with the second card, to be honest with you. I knew I had to use the sentiment because there's only one sentiment in this particular stamp set for Paper Wings. So I knew I had to put that down, but I didn't know where I was going to put the other butterflies, and I didn't want to use the flowers again. So I was just trying to think, do I stamp them in black and white and just leave them there? But then I kind of had this idea. What if I stamp them on vellum, cut them out, and pop them up? So here we are. Here's some VersaFine. And we need the powder because this is the part that I always forget. So we use that resist powder, ink these babies up, and oh, look at the detail. Oh my gosh, these are beautiful, just beautiful. All right, so some clear embossing powder. Boop, boop. Always got to shake that stuff off, but it doesn't matter because we're going to fussy cut these out. Did I ever tell you that the embossing powder is what made me fall in love with stamping? I was in a class and the person was demonstrating embossing, heat embossing, and I just thought it was magical. And that was it. I literally fell in love in that moment saying, I need to be able to do this. Decades later, here I am. I'm still doing it. Anywho. Fussy cut the butterflies out, and then for vellum, and because I used VersaFine Clear or VersaFine heat embossing, you don't want to use your Copics with that. You don't want to color on top of this with your Copics. So because this is vellum and it's somewhat translucent, what you do is color behind it. So I pulled out, I think it was like an E09 and some other oranges. Let me think. It was like, I think like a YR18, YR16, YR65, YR61. So I used those colors in whatever order to color behind the vellum. This allowed color where you wouldn't normally be able to color when it's heat embossed. So that's the fun part of something like this, where you just don't realize that you can still color it. You could just color it on the other side because it's see-through. So here I am just kind of blending it out. I also realized that with the vellum, the ink doesn't blend as smoothly. It kind of sits on top. So you just have to be careful with going from dark to light. Probably should go from light to dark, to be honest, and then try to gently blend in. because again, the ink sits on top, so it will kind of smudge into your marker tip. So as you can see, the color pops from underneath. I'm going a little darker because the vellum kind of dulls it down a little bit. So I just figured, you know what, let's just go darker. This is where I bring in that E09. And now you can see a little more color. And I'm holding it over the white so that way I could see the true, because when I have it over black, you don't really see the color. So again, I'm using that bolder E09, and then I'm going with some of the lighter colors. I probably don't even use that YR61, to be honest with you. I just ended up using some of the bolder colors since it's vellum. All right. And if you have any smudges or things like that, I have a sand eraser. I'm just trying to clean it up a little bit, and going to use some sticky, these aren't sticky dots, but you can use sticky dots. These are like sticky long thingies. I don't know what they're called, but I ended up having to fold them over because they were too long. But this is how I adhered them. And then I folded up the wings a little bit just so they have a little dimension. But this just looks so awesome. And I die cut some black cardstock and adhered it to white card bases. And these cards are done. I love it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed and found some inspiration. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Happy crafting!